Okay, this lecture in Lesson 9 is about the workbook exercise. So as we turn the page, the workbook exercise is right here, which is a picture of a still life setup on this page. You'll have a piece of vellum on here, and the next thing that you'll need is a viewfinder. Now, you've built one of these viewfinders using this template in an earlier lesson. Now, the description of this exercise is over here in this column, and I'll be describing that as I go along. Now, to use this viewfinder, this example here says it is an example of a cropped composition using your viewfinder to select an area from this picture. Now, if you notice as I put this over here, it exactly cropped a certain part of this picture. Now, this exercise is a practice so that you'll have this experience to look at a larger still life for Project 3. So the difference between this exercise and the actual first part of Project 3 is that this is easier. It's easier because you're laying this right on the picture. And you don't have the opportunity of picking it up and bringing it closer to you and farther away and actually changing the actual visual expanse of what you're able to take in with this viewfinder. You only have this very two-dimensional way to look at it. So, but what you're learning how to do is to select a few objects. Now, this is a breakdown of what you're really looking for here. So what I'm going to do is move this over to the left, and I'm going to keep this right off to the right over here. And you're looking for 4 things. You want to select 3 to 5 different shapes, use closure and cropping, select overlapping shapes, and select a full range of values from black to white. So first of all, if we look at the example here, which is what was on the other page, you'll notice how we've got 3 to 5 shapes. We've got a bottle there, and we got one here, that's 2, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. Now, when we talk about closure and cropping, closure, you remember, is simply an object that is cropped and therefore separates the background into more than one shape. When you start looking at a composition like this, sometimes background shapes become the background. And so sometimes one background shape may be cropped to create a third background here. So you can look at it as the figures being the bottles and the boxes being the background. So it does get more complicated. But there is some closure up here in that there's a value change from here, here, and here, so you do have a different background back here. This is an object here, of course, so that's different from here, and this box is different from that. Also, you have selecting overlapping things. Well, this box is in front, this bottle's in front of these boxes, this bottle's in front of these 2 boxes, this box is in front of this one. Then it says select a full range of values from white to dark or black. Okay, so now your job in here is to select 4 different ones, and they all should be different, following the same criteria. Now, I did 4 of them here, and so what I'm going to do is just go through each one of these, and I'm going to put the viewfinder right where it was, and we'll talk about this one. So you say, well, I selected, looks like I have part of this mannequin, I have a bottle, there's 2, 3, 4, 4.5, or 5 objects, and I have a background. There's also some shadows back here. So did I use closure and cropping? Yes, we have cropping here. This box is cropped on the bottom. We have another box protruding over on the right-hand side. This is not cropped at all. But so there really isn't any closure from here to here, but some of these background objects are making closure because they are background objects that are in front of other objects. So this is more complicated than it was originally when we first discussed what closure and cropping was. Do we have overlapping shapes? Yes, we have bottle in front of the mannequin and in front of this striped fabric. Select a full range of values from black to white. Well, there isn't really much white in this picture. This is a pretty low light picture. It does have some black, but mostly grays. One thing you're going to find in doing these is that an object alone by itself doesn't always contain one value. Now, is there 3 to 5 shapes in here? No, I see a box and some cups and a couple shadows. So there's not very many shapes. Is there closure and cropping in here? Well, there's some cropping on the bottom, but this whole background back here there's nothing going on here. This is not a very good selection. Is there any overlapping shapes? No. Is there a full range of value? Well, not really. Aside from this little black dot here, there really isn't any black in this picture. So that was not a very good one. Let's try this one over in the corner here. Now this one only has 2 objects really. Well, it has 3 if you consider this. The background here can be divided up as having background, cloth, and some shadow here. So cast shadows do start to play an important part in your composition selections. So we do have some cropping here and here. We don't really have any overlapping shapes except for this one leg of the mannequin overlaps the other, and maybe this foot's in front of this cloth, but it really isn't indicating that much space because there's no cast shadows to it. There is a full range of values in this, but the composition in this one is not very strong. There's really not a lot of things going on, and in the central part of this picture it's fairly empty with a lot of diagonal directional lines leading off the top of the composition. Okay, last one that I picked in here. So we have quite a few shapes in here. We have quite a bit of closure and cropping because we have different types of background shapes. We have stripes and we have boxes. We have a lot of overlapping. We have a mannequin's leg in front of a box, in front of 2 sets of cups, which are in front of some fabric. And it does have a full range of values. It has whites and blacks. So this is a better composition. Now the next part of this exercise, when you pick these, was to shade them using a pencil. And I would suggest an HB pencil. Not too soft and not too hard. Now one of the things that you'll see when you do this, you'll notice that these are considered rough thumbnail sketches. Now you'll be doing larger thumbnail sketches using a schematic that you used before that looked like this. You'll be doing that later when you do project 3, but this is the same layout you used before. Right now these are only this big, which is about 2 1/4 by 1 3/4 inches. So it won't take you very long to do these. What I think you'll discover here is that shapes have different values inside the shape. Like you'll notice this mannequin leg here has darker edges here. And when you're starting to trace or draw these, it says that, well, you should try and distill this down to at least a black, white, and 1 gray. Well, that's almost impossible to do. You'll end up with at least a couple grays. Otherwise, but what you're learning is that when you get one that has a full range of value, it looks more interesting than one that doesn't. And you can see this one down here, which had no whites in it, is fairly dark and not very lively. And if you look at this one, I mentioned in the last lesson about stripes, and following stripes exactly when you crop something is really beneficial to you to learn more about fabric. You see, this one has no stripes in it, so knowing how fabric moves gets a little difficult. And you can notice up here there's a student example right here about fabric, but we'll be learning more about that later. So anyway, this exercise is just getting you warmed up for project 3. So you'll need to complete this before we start on that, and that'll be in another YouTube. Okay, that's it for this lecture.